Wouldn't it be nice to have several thought leaders in your industry know and love your brand? Start a podcast. Invite your industry's thought leaders to be guests on your show and start reaping the benefits of having a network full of industry influencers. Learn more at sweetfishmedia.com.
You're listening to B2B Growth, a daily podcast for B2B leaders. We've interviewed names you've probably heard before, like Gary Vaynerchuk and Simon Sinek, but you've probably never heard from the majority of our guests. That's because the bulk of our interviews aren't with professional speakers and authors. Most of our guests are in the trenches leading sales and marketing teams. They're implementing strategy. They're experimenting with tactics. They're building the fastest growing B2B companies in the world. My name is James Carberry. I'm the founder of Sweetfish Media, a podcast agency for B2B brands, and I'm also one of the co-hosts of this show. When we're not interviewing sales and marketing leaders, you'll hear stories from behind the scenes of our own business. We'll share the ups and downs of our journey as we attempt to take over the world. Just kidding. Well, maybe. Let's get into the show.
Welcome back to B2B Growth. I am your host for today's episode, Nikki Ivy with Sweetfish Media. Guys, I've got with me today Stu Heinecke, who is author of How to Get a Meeting with Anyone and the forthcoming book, Get the Meeting, that's out this October. And we're going to be talking about that today and a couple of other sort of themes within that idea. But before we get to all of that, Stu, I would love it if you would give us just a little bit of background on yourself and what you've been up to these days.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for asking. Well, I have an unusual background, Nikki. I'm one of the Wall Street Journal cartoonists. I'm a Hall of Fame nominated marketer twice, actually. And then I'm also the author of How to Get a Meeting with Anyone and Get the Meeting. So obviously, I know how to get meetings, but I've been able to use cartoons in marketing in some really, really interesting ways. I've created a lot of record-breaking campaigns for some of the biggest direct marketers in the world. That was how my career started. But one of the things I noticed was that when I sent my cartoons around, if I send a print of one of my cartoons, and they're always personalized, I'm going to have to send you one because I see there's nothing. Well, I don't see your wall actually, but there's nothing on your office. We'll have to get something up for you. But when I send someone a cartoon about themselves, and if it's on target, if it's about something that they find interesting or important in their lives, I'm going to get through to them. And, I discovered that really early in my career that I could get through to just about anybody. In fact, at one point I was thinking, well, who could I get through to? And I've broken through to presidents and prime ministers and celebrities and all kinds of C-level executives and top decision makers. And so that's actually where I'm coming from with the books and with the marketing that I produce for clients now. We run an agency. I also consult and so forth to help sales teams break through to their top accounts.
I love that because like we're going to be talking about today and like you and I were discussing offline, as you say, one meeting can change everything. So let's get into it. Talk to me. I want to hear, and I'm sure you go through it, and I haven't had a chance to read your first book, and I'm looking very forward to reading this next one, but this idea of one meeting can change everything. Talk about a time when that happened, when it surprised even you.
Well, the biggest surprise was when I met my wife, but I'm not sure. She was a Penthouse cover model, and I traveled to Copenhagen to meet her.
Are you serious?
So meetings really can change everything.
Oh my God, that's about the best example that anybody could come up with to that answer on that question on the fly. That's awesome.
That's like a nuke.
So you wrote her a letter or what? You made her a cartoon and wrote her a letter?
I wanted to make a film, and I was working on a film project, and it was about my high school fantasy to go to one of those countries and bring home a beautiful woman, and then I thought, hey, I'm going to make a film of that, and then I saw, I was going to go there anyway, just with my camera to get footage of the place and the people and see who's there and see if I imagined it right, and I don't know, just I needed to see it and get it on film. And about a month before I was set to leave, I saw this picture in the magazine and I went, oh my God, if I was going on this fantasy for real, this is the girl I would bring home. And so I wrote to the magazine and told them about my film project, and then they put me in touch with her photographer, and that was it. Now we're married. We have 3 kids and all. But that wasn't what I meant to tell you. That's not even in the book.
I like to deliver a scoop to the people. But so that is an example. There's one kind of example of how one meeting can change everything. But what we were talking about is this idea that nothing can happen without meetings.
Yeah, that's right.
And we were talking about like that, how that's true in life and it's true in business, no matter what your function is within a business. So talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so, a much more useful example is actually one that happened. So when How to Get a Meeting with Anyone came out, I was hearing from a lot of people who were saying, oh my God, I read the book. It changed my life. It changed my results. And so one of them was a guy named Dom Steinman. And Dom said, when he reached out to me a year ago, I was a college student. I was just about to graduate. I didn't know what I was going to do. And I was hired to be an SDR, a sales development rep, for kind of a late stage startup. And he was hired. And one of the things they required of all of the SDRs was that they had to make 100 phone calls a day, and to prospects. Mm-hmm. And he was finding that it was just producing nothing. Because people weren't answering the phones or they weren't interested, and they might get one conversation a day out of that. And so he was lamenting all this to a friend over dinner one night, and the friend said, "You know what? You got to get this book, How to Get a Meeting with Anyone." And so he did. He read it and thought, "Okay, all right, I know exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to use deep personalization, and I'm going to, in other words, profile scrapes. And I'm going to research one of the people that none of us have been able to reach yet, but I'm going to research this prospect and find out what he's interested in. Just do a profile scrape, and and of course, I'm going to still make my 100 phone calls. I have to do that. I don't want to get fired. So, but he did research on this first guy, and he found out eventually that the guy was really interested in family and cooking and technology. So 2 out of 3, he ordered an apron, like a barbecue apron, and he had it embroidered with an Arthur C. Clarke quote, "Technology sufficiently advanced will appear like magic," something like that. And he was a futurist, so it belonged on the apron for this guy. So he made that up, sent it out to him. The guy called him back, and they ended up doing a 6-figure deal right away. And this was someone that no one was able to get through to before from his department. Well, his cohorts started to notice what he was up to. Well, they noticed his results. They're saying, "Man, what are you doing? How are you breaking through?" So he explained the whole thing. And they said, "Well, would you help us do that?" So sure. So one of them was, one of his colleagues had another one of these people that no one was able to break through to, from his company anyway. No one had been able to break through. So he said, "Okay, let's do a profile scrape." And what they discovered was that this fellow was really into falconry. So they went to a falconry site and they said, "Okay, we want to send someone a gift, someone who's really into falconry. What should we send?" And falconry, it's the youth. I mean, they have this big glove on, and they have falcons, and they hunt with the falcons. So the site owner said, "Look, let me show you this glove. I mean, the gloves are great. They make a great gift. And here's one of the nicest ones that we sell. It's $100. So they said, "Done. We'll buy it." So they ordered it, and they had it sent to the prospect. But they also downloaded the picture from the site, and they sent an email to the prospect right away. And they said, "Hey," and the fellow said, "I've been trying to reach you. I just want to let you know I just sent you this falconry glove. I hope you enjoy it. And I'd love to talk to you sometime about our services." The guy wrote back immediately. And this is someone who wouldn't respond at all. But he wrote back immediately and said, "Hey, that's a cool glove, but I'm really not a prospect. But thanks for the offer. I mean, for the just for the gesture."
Sure.
Well, then a week later, let's say, the glove arrives, and the prospect calls back and says, "Oh my God, I just got the glove. This thing's cool. I love this thing." And remember I was telling you that I'm not a prospect? Well, I'm really not a prospect, but I know of 3 other CIOs who are. They're looking for exactly what you're selling. So I'm going to make introductions for you. So those introductions happened, and another few 6-figure deals ensued. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Well, then management started noticing, well, what's going on here? And they all pointed to Dom, and Dom said, "Well, I'm doing the 100 phone calls for you. That's what you want. But meanwhile, we're doing these profile scrapes. This is how we're doing it." And they said they were so impressed with it that they promoted him to sales manager, and that was right about the time that the company was sold to, I think, Cisco for $4.7 billion. So a year out of college, Dom became just using contact marketing, the contact marketing that's in the book. We're in the 2 books now. Dom was able to go from new recruit to sales manager of a multi-billion-dollar multinational company. So that's a pretty good example of how meetings can change everything. You know, you've been through this in your own life. Every good thing, every big thing that happens because we've made connections with people.
Yes. I mean, that is my life too. See, a lot of folks who listen to the show know that I don't have quite as exciting a story as how I met my husband, as far as how you met your wife. It's a modern love story of 2 people on the internet. No, I met my husband online, but it's true, right? So online, there's lots of different people, and there is still this aspect of breaking through noise. There is still this aspect of getting the meeting, right? Of going from being one of the people, you know, it was the early 2000s was a chat room, right? One of the people in the chat room to now 2 people talking on the phone. This was back when you didn't give people your phone number on the internet. So like, look, yes, it pays to understand how to get the meeting, whether you're talking about life or business. What I want to know is, you know, going from the types of things that were outlined in how to get a meeting with anyone to the ways that get the meeting builds on that. What are some of the ways in get the meeting, or some of the interesting things in get the meeting that didn't appear in this first book, and how does it differ?
Yeah, a great question. You know, well, the thing is, in how to get a meeting with anyone, what I did was I canvassed a lot of the big sales thought leaders in the world, and I asked them, hey, when you absolutely have to break through to someone of great importance, someone who's nearly impossible to reach, how are you doing this? And so they shared all kinds of methods. I mean, we're doing a podcast together. Podcasts are a great way to meet people, aren't they? I mean,
my favorite way to not
right
bias.
Right? So there's that. But people have been using gifts. You probably know, I don't know if you've ever interviewed John Ruhlin. You should. If not, John is the author of Giftology, and he's just the master of giving gifts. And actually, so I ended up coming up with 20 categories, or I actually have sort of condensed it all down to 20 categories of contact marketing campaigns. And as I mentioned, you know, with Dom's story and many others, it's changed a lot of people's results. You know, I've got this one client, big one, who we helped take from a 0% contact rate to 70% contact rate and a 50% meeting rate with their top tier accounts. So that's a big change for them. And you know, and when you start, I call all of this contact marketing. And, you know, contact marketing as a marketing form tends to get metrics that are just crazy compared to other forms of marketing.
For sure.
So one of those is, here's a 70% response rate. You know, and when I started out in direct mail, where they used to say 1% response rate was a great or typical, there is no such thing as a typical response rate, but they're talking 1%. And they're also saying that 100% response rates are impossible. But guess what? In contact marketing, we are seeing 100% response rates. Not all the time, but we are seeing them. And so it started with, as I was writing the book, it bothered me that, well, you know, if we're going after accounts that have been identified, and we really want to sell to all of them, right? We certainly want to talk to all of them. I mean, some of them aren't going to be prospects after all, but we certainly don't want to let them get away with just ignoring us, right? But we can't. You got to talk at least. So it bothered me that if we were getting a 70% contact rate, that we were leaving another 30% on the table. So for the next book, I've started reworking the contact marketing model, and it now includes a digital persistence rail or element. So while you're reaching out, actually before you reach out to them, while you're reaching out to them, while you're in the sales cycle, we want to be doing things on the digital side that sort of automate the touches that are required to keep things moving. But we're still using these really outrageous or very clever means to reach out to people, because what we want people to do when we set our sights on them and we reach out for a meeting, what we want them to do is we want to be saying, man, I love the way Nikki thinks. Man, that's unbelievable. Look what she sent. This is incredible, right? Or look what she's doing. That's just incredible. I love the way she thinks. We need that in our company. So there's that. And then there's another thing, one other part that I thought needed addressing. And so I did that and Get the Meeting, which is that business cards. Business cards are just inert little pieces of paper or metal that we're using to try to impress each other, I think. And so, I did a recent poll on LinkedIn and I just said, hey, are you using business cards? And if you are, what are you using? And if not, what are you doing? So
Yeah,
I found that 50% weren't even using business cards. But those people, the ones that weren't, were telling me that, well, what I do is if I run into someone at a networking event or something, we just trade phones and type in our details into each other's address books. And I'm thinking, well, great. But then if you have thousands of people in that address book, how are you going to find them? And if you did that with 10 people, how are you going to remember any of them? Right? I mean, I think that's a lost opportunity. And same goes for, I don't know, let's say you meet and you say, well, let's just connect on LinkedIn. Well, you're connected to thousands of people on LinkedIn. I am too. We all are. And we connect with people constantly. And it's not a significant enough action, right? I mean, there's so many people that we're connected with that we forget all about. So,
so tell us, Stu, what do you do instead? The suspense is killing me.
Well, so what we do is we use something that I called pocket campaigns in the book. And so it starts with, it's an engagement device. So instead of, the business cards that we all remember, if you think about it, are the ones that they're not like business cards at all. And you do something with them. It's an invitation to play or use it or do something with in some way. And I mean, like, for example, one business card I found during my research was a metal card with all these little punch outs so that it was actually a multi-tool. It was a wrench and it was a screwdriver and all these things. But it was the thickness and size of a credit card. So and it was for a bike repair shop. It's just brilliant. So you just take his card and you put it in your wallet because you're going to keep it. You're going to keep it with you always, right? Because you never know when you might need it. Well, that's really different from most of the business cards that you've ever gotten and that I've ever gotten. They go in a box or maybe they get thrown away. They're not useful.
What it sounds like, Stu,
I was going to say, that's just the start of it, though, because that then leads to a jump offer, which leads to a jump page, which then pixels the recipient, and now they've been pulled into your digital persistence campaign. That's part of the overall element of the model. So that happens because let's go back to the multi-tool for a second. Mm-hmm. If the multi-tool just had all these different cutouts, just really intricate, and you look at it and say, well, I kind of have an idea of how this is going to be used, but I don't know what this little notch is for. So if that is handed out with a URL to go to a page where there's a video that shows you how to use how to use the card, or really the multi-tool, well, then now we can track you and we can start running ads to you, right? We run ads to you wherever you go on the web. That's totally different from what a business card is and what it does. And frankly, it becomes now a campaign that you pull out of your pocket just like a card, but you get measurable response and ROI and sales from it, as opposed to just
And what it sounds like is you're not too hung up on what exact creative or clever noise breaking method is being used. More, you're emphasizing the fact that there are many different ways that folks things that can look like, and that it's important that you're just focusing on that, like that you're doing it at all matters more than, because what I expected, I'll be honest with you, coming into this conversation was, for you to lay out, these are the types of pocket campaigns that I'm outlining in the book, or these are the ways to break through the noise, which is quite honestly a little bit typical of, things you hear on a podcast or things you read in the blog. So that you're saying, like, here's sort of a curated list or a group of case studies on many things I've seen people do that are effective to inspire you to keep that up and keep refreshing that spirit to be creative in the way that you reach out to people and break through the noise. Now that's exciting.
Yeah, thank you. I love the way you put that, because really none of it is meant to just be, here, copy this.
Right.
It's meant to inspire you, because you're going to have to, I mean, the multi-tool is one example of many things that can be used as that engagement device. What I'm just saying is use an engagement device and give some compelling reason to go to a page, because then you can pixel them and you can pull them into that digital persistence campaign, and you're going to make sales from that. And that's already happening, actually. We already have some consulting clients. We're already doing it. It's pretty cool to watch it happen.
I love it. Perfect. So tell us again when exactly the book drops and how we can get hold of it.
Comes out October 15th, and I think you can get it almost anywhere that the books are sold. You can go there now, actually, and you can pre-order it. But it's on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Books A Million, Indigo, IndieBound, and Penn Bella Books, and so on. It's all over the place, but it doesn't actually come out till October 15th.
I'm excited. I'm always looking for inspiration and for ways to break through the noise. So this book is right up my alley. For those that don't know, I mean, you and I have been connected for a while, and I'm a fan already. And there are those folks that are probably no doubt listening to this podcast because they read the first book. But for anyone else, let us know how people can connect with you, Stu.
Oh, sure. Well, thanks for asking. Actually, I mean, the best way to connect with me, as you know, is on LinkedIn. Mm-hmm. Actually, just find me there, Stu Heinecke. So it's STU and then my last name, Heinecke, HEINECKE. And if you wrote those things down, also you can write down StuHeinecke.com, where you can go get a free preview of the book, a couple of first chapters of the book, and you could do that now.
Good stuff. Well, I can't wait. I want to be able to talk about some of the things that I find, once I get my hands on this book that I'm going to be using myself. Because like I said, I always feel the best ideas.
Oh man, I can't wait. Well, you and I are connected on LinkedIn, so I can't wait to see what you do.
We are. You will see that in your feed. Thanks so much, Stu. We'll have to have you on again.
Thank you so much.
We totally get it. We publish a ton of content on this podcast, and it can be a lot to keep up with. That's why we've started the B2B Growth Big Three, a no-fluff email that boils down our 3 biggest takeaways from an entire week of episodes. Sign up today at sweetfishmedia.com/big3. That's sweetfishmedia.com/big3.